The forests of the Pacific Northwest were abound with stories of ghosts, ghouls, and various other beasts. But in the small mountain town where I grew up, our local legend was the Witch of Goat Mountain. As children, my friends and I were always out exploring the woods and freaking each other out with different games we used to play. I remember often finding weird things like bones stacked neatly in strange formations with the skull of a deer in the middle, antlers still attached. On other occasions, I would hear beautiful singing in the distance. The words sounded sweet to my young ears, and I felt oddly drawn to them. I felt like I desperately needed to find whoever was singing that lovely tune. I never did, though. I always had this strange gnawing in my gut that I needed to get away from there fast. My dad's friends who were avid hunters would often come over and share strange experiences they had while hunting. One of them mentioned being in a tree stand in the early morning hours and seeing a woman walking through the forest wearing a black cloak.
She was just casually walking through the trees about 50 yards in front of me. And at first I thought it was a tweaker who had wandered out in the woods and gotten lost or something. So I called out to her. And as soon as I did that, she stopped and turned to face me. I can't be sure of what I saw next because it still wasn't fully light outside, but I swear it looked like she had the legs of a goat or horse or something. She stood facing me for a few minutes, then casually walked out of sight. It startled me pretty bad, and I have not been out there since.
Despite all the strange occurrences and stories, my childhood continued as normal. That is, until my best friend Brandon disappeared. It was a warm, sunny day, and we were out in the woods playing hide-and-seek. It was Brandon's turn to hide, when suddenly, as I was getting ready to go find him, I heard the singing. "Brandon? Brandon?" I called out, feeling a little uneasy. "Brandon, I think we should go home now." But there was no answer. I decided he must be ignoring me and would probably jump out from behind a tree at any moment. But he never did. At that moment I heard his voice crying in the distance. It was very faint and muffled, but I could clearly hear the words. "Brandon! Where are you?" I spent the next 2 hours searching for him in a dazed panic. "This can't be real. This can't be real," I kept telling myself. Like saying the words enough times would make me wake up from some terrible nightmare. Finally, exhausted and crying, after finding nothing but one of his shoes, I gave up my search and returned home. It was dark when I reached my parents' doorstep, and they were furious, but also relieved when they saw me.
"Where on earth have you been? How many times have we told you not to be out playing after dark? You could have been killed!"
"Brandon's parents called and said he hasn't come home yet,"
said my father.
"Where have you two been?"
"I'm sorry! I'm sorry! I don't know what happened to him. We were playing hide and seek, and he disappeared. All I found was this," I sobbed, and held up Brandon's shoe. My parents looked very alarmed by this, and told me to remain in my room for the rest of the night. I lay down on my bed and passed out from sheer exhaustion, only to be awoken at about 11 p.m. by the sound of my parents talking.
"This is just like the Burtons, boy,"
said my mom.
"I know,"
came the voice of my father.
"Gone without a trace."
"The police are looking for Brandon as we speak. Maybe they'll have some luck with this case."
Who was the Burtons boy? This had happened more than once? Was someone trying to get me too? This was all too much for my young mind to handle, and I once again fell into an uncomfortable sleep, filled with nightmares and screams of my friend. I woke up several times throughout the night in a cold sweat, and I swear I could hear the sound of a woman singing outside my window. Years have gone by now, and the case has since gone cold. Search and rescue teams searched for miles and miles after Brandon's initial disappearance, but in the end, turned up with nothing. I'm now fully grown, with a family of my own, and about a month ago, we decided to stay at my parents' house for a couple of days so the kids could see Grandma and Grandpa. I was down in the basement, going through some of my old childhood belongings, when I noticed what looked like a trap door that had been hidden under some boxes. I was baffled. All those years I had lived here, but never knew about any secret doors in the basement. My curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to go down and check it out. The trapdoor opened with a loud creak, and I climbed down an old, rickety ladder that led into the depths. I immediately found the light switch and flipped it on. I was standing in a small room with several workbenches covered in saws, knives, and power tools. But something else caught my eye. It was an old tape recorder. I picked it up and clicked the play button, but as soon as I did, I was gripped with absolute horror. It was the sound of the woman singing that beautiful music I had heard as a child. But only now did I realize that the woman I heard singing all those years ago was my mother. "It's not possible," I said aloud. I began going through the drawers and cabinets, only to confirm my greatest fears. They were all filled with children's clothes. I began to retch at what I saw next. It was the pair of shoes Brandon had been wearing when he disappeared.